Day 954 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 657,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,230 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, so 15 tanks, 31 APVs, a whopping 59 artillery, a well above average 8 multiple launch rocket systems, an artillery class of its own, and 1 air defense system, which was the very important 96L6 radar component of a S-400 battery, destroyed in Belgorod. The battery's launchers become useless without them. Then we'll head straight across to the map today as Russian oil depots had another explosive night with storage locations in the Russian regions of Voronezh and Perm burning for hours. So starting with the Perm region of Russia, a major fire engulfed a storage base for petroleum products where the fire engulfed fuel tanks and covered an area of 10,000 square meters. Now, Perm is 1,700 kilometers from Ukraine, which is generally known to be out of reach for Ukraine's current aerial range, making for a very curious situation on what might have been the cause. And given the nature of the site's direct involvement or utility in the Russian SMO, this example, like many others now, surely cannot all be some accidental coincidence. Then moving back across, because as for Russia's Voronezh region, an attack on another oil depot led to a significant fire. Russian Telegram channels report that the fire broke out after a fuel tank was hit. The cause of the fire is suspected to be a Ukrainian drone strike, and more than likely is. So here we have it, Ukraine switching gears from oil depots to ammunition dumps back to oil depots, with the use of their incredibly trusty, locally developed medium-range UAV platforms. Then we'll head across to the main map today, where early this morning there was a small number of Russian Shahed attacks as they fired into Ukrainian territory, with Russia known to be expanding the production of those very Shahed drones, just like the one we see here. In turn, Ukraine has been expanding its arsenal of air defenses at a commensurate rate, and thankfully for Ukraine, when they're intercepting between 50 to 90 of these Russian attack drones on multiple days of any given week now, the AFU will largely deploy the much less costly short-range air defenses to intercept these aerial threats. For instance, with use of the French Crotale, the German Gepards, and a number of man-portable air defense systems, or manpads, from the likes of the United States Stingers, or that of the United Kingdom's Starstreaks, and France's Mistrals. But even still, the cost of those munitions can stack up over time, and since Ukraine can't hold their breath for directed energy weapons, that is to say laser weapon defenses, that happen to cost a minuscule $10 a shot, one of the next cheapest directions Ukraine is looking to take is by that of the trusty high-speed quadcopter drones for interception instead. Of course, we already see a recent and massive uptick of their usage, mostly against Russian recon UAVs, but the processes are now being developed, innovated, and optimized as a form of greater air defense, as a more cost-effective solution. Then headed across to the southeastern front lines of the map, Pokrovsk, as we saw a 1 square kilometer gain by the armed forces of Russia on the outskirts to Ukrainsk, which was also the only gain for the entire sector for the day, where those days are cooling, and the nights are also cooling, reaching lows of 47 degrees Fahrenheit or about 8 degrees Celsius this week. The difficult ground operations resulting from the rainy, wet season still has some weeks to arrive, meaning that Russia's primary military objective of Pokrovsk would, once again, as I've mentioned before, need to speed up its activities to avoid getting literally bogged down in the mud, thereby getting their offensive operations helplessly swarmed by Ukrainian UAVs. And it is interesting that this location on the map right here is Russia's top priority, #1 objective, and not just for the Ukrainian map, but arguably for the Russian map as well, where the seemingly convoluted or distorted logic of the Kremlin places a higher importance on this never Russian-held Ukrainian town over that of the long-established and undisputed Russian territory of Kursk. So to take a look at some of the reasons for the Russian military pace as it is right now, here we see the most recent examples of Ukraine's targeting of Russian tanks, armored vehicles, vans, sedan cars, motorbikes, and even buggies still making an appearance. Then also just south of here to the Kharkova direction, as the preferred methodology here was the deployment of Russia's two-wheel army, the remains of which you see are tossed and scattered and destroyed motorbikes, clearly of different makes and models when you zoom in, no standardization, where motorbike riding Russian soldiers were sent in without any protection and are so incredibly vulnerable to any type of attack. And yet, sometimes we forget how ridiculous of a situation this really is, because just imagine serving in your military, specifically your army's ground forces, where your commander orders you to rush enemy positions on unprotected motorbikes across open fields in a drone-infested 21st century warfare environment. Clearly no concern for value of human life right there. Then on the map, so a bit of a shorter video today, but we'll head all the way up to Kursk now because right on schedule, Russian channels are reporting an attack on their nuclear power plant in Kursk. Despite local claims that the smoke has nothing to do with the plant, which is located 5 kilometers away. Videos and images shared across these channels show a large fire in Kurchatov, some distance away from the Kursk nuclear power plant, the two sites of which seemingly completely obstructed by a lake between them. Russian news media outlets alleged that Ukraine launched multiple strikes on the Kursk nuclear power plant using HIMARS rockets and drones, stating also that they were intercepted. Ukraine denies the claims, and Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council refuted claims of HIMARS attacks on the plant. So Russia seems to be claiming here the following narrative that it goes something like this. So, hey Ukraine, you attacked our nuclear plant, see this smoke, oh by the way, your weapons are inferior, we shot them all down, but we're still outraged, even though these events are happening 5 kilometers away as per some of the photos and the local reports. So this is an ongoing problem that Russia faces. Credibility. As they use all of their excuses or use all of their conflicting claims all at the same time. And we've not even considered here yet Russia's ongoing role in the dangers of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in the south. Just a political environment littered with hypocrisy. Russia, offended by everything, ashamed of nothing. Then headed around the map briefly, as somewhere in the east, Ukrainian tanks, or just a single tank of the Azov Brigade, destroyed 2 Russian BMP infantry fighting vehicles in a close-range encounter. The tank crew was clearly better trained, better equipped, and all around well prepared. Then headed across to a little bit of news for today. So President Zelensky stated in his most recent evening address that strengthening Ukraine's air defenses ahead of winter is a crucial step towards effectively intercepting Russian missiles and drones. He highlighted the importance of joint defense efforts, noting that progress can be made despite previous challenges. He also remarked that the solutions that protect the skies over the Middle East, such as those used to defend Israel, could also be successfully applied in Ukraine, saving countless lives in the process. As such, Ukraine is engaging with its allies in preparation for winter. Meanwhile, Russia's politosphere is not talking at all about their winter challenges or solutions. I'm somewhat convinced it doesn't even register on their own radar. And this is serious because last winter, Russia had a tremendous amount of infrastructure issues that had nothing at all even to do with Ukraine. Their aging Soviet infrastructure is beginning to buckle under the weight of its long-neglected decaying status. plunging literally millions into cold and darkness across Russia last winter. And now, with another harsh Russian winter on the horizon, compounded by Ukraine's enhanced longer-range drone capabilities, we could witness some truly devastating outcomes for Russia. You may remember last year, Russian media claimed that the British were having to eat roasted squirrels in restaurants, suggesting that the UK and Europe had become so cold and so impoverished during winter. However, it may soon be the case that many Russians will be wishing they were in open, warm restaurants, eating anything roasted on the menu this coming winter. Then headed to a brief Russian hardware news update of a sort, this one, where we see the spillover effect of systemic Russian corruption finding itself all the way down into the Donbass. As a local films this example far beyond the front lines of Donetsk, as he narrates saying, quote, "They are disgracefully selling all this humanitarian and military aid, soldiers are fighting, but we have corruption here." You'll see one of these pop-up street stalls right here, far from any business district. So typically, this corruption stems from logistical and procurement divisions within the Ministry of Defense of Russia, which is responsible for distributing aid and supplies to frontline troops. But it's the mismanagement or outright theft at this level that allowed local commanders and officers to make a few bucks on the side selling the gear off to the private sector, who then sell it for a larger profit. Meanwhile, the demoralized Russian soldier in the cold, unprotected trenches at night becomes even more demoralized. Then headed across to a short bout of Russian economy news as Ilya Kozlov, the Deputy General Director of the investment arm of Russia's energy company Gazprom Invest, has decided to give his 2 cents about saving the Russian economy, as he said that Russian authorities need to, quote-unquote, stop saving dying settlements and focus on developing large cities only. Bit of an oversimplification there, where he appears to suggest a massive population displacement to the large western cities of the country, which would entirely need to ramp up civil infrastructure to accomplish this, and in doing so, abandoning the smaller eastern population centres that in part exist due to the economic development of those areas from natural resource mining. Yeah, none of this is going to work. But I have a better recommendation for Russia. Withdraw from Ukraine, because it's costing you $300 million per day. It's unsustainable for their size economy. Then headed across to a super quick funny to round it all off for today, guys. So the Russian Ministry of Defense thought it wise to upload the following training video, a segment of which shows specific training guidelines for what to do when encountering a Ukrainian drone before being sent to war. Don't shoot at it, just throw your weapon at it instead. Now, given that this is evidently the new official approach, that means I'm now only waiting for similar real-life videos like this from the front lines. Just imagine seeing this training video moments before you head off to the SMO. Hopefully it fills them with confidence. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment. If you typically watch the videos, the uploads, and haven't yet subscribed, I'd really appreciate that. As I always say, it helps boost out the channel, spreads the message there. So thanks again, guys, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.